Okay, so brief disclaimer about this game. Apparently, the game is premium for both iOS and Android for $6.99. But there's still content like towers and heroes locked behind additional paywalls. I played the game on the Play Pass, available on Android, and didn't experience any of these issues. So, do with that information as you will. Now for the actual review. When I began playing Kingdom Rush 5, I wasn't quite sure what to expect from this tower defense game. Having not played any title in the genre for quite some time, nor any previous titles in the series, I was immediately drawn by the vibrant visuals and engaging sound design, which set the stage for what I hoped would be a strategic and thrilling experience. The game introduces a unique dual hero mechanic, allowing you to control two heroes at once, adding a fresh layer of strategy to the familiar tower defense formula. This feature quickly became one of my favorites, as it opened up numerous possibilities for creating powerful hero combinations. However, the game's pacing sometimes made this mechanic feel more burdensome than enjoyable, especially during longer waves where I often found myself wishing for a fast forward button. This was particularly frustrating in the early stages, where the action felt slow and the lack of speed up between enemy waves drag on. The gameplay revolves around strategic tower placements, upgrading those towers, and effectively managing the abilities of your heroes. You have 12 heroes to choose from, each with their own unique set of abilities, and 15 towers to unlock and upgrade as you progress through the game. The towers and heroes you can choose significantly impact your strategy, which kept the gameplay engaging at least for the first few hours. However, while the game offers 16 stages, each with its own layout and enemy types, the gameplay loop began to feel repetitive after a while. Although there's a skill tree for upgrading heroes and towers, as well as additional challenge of going back and getting 3 stars on each level, these features weren't enough to keep the experience from becoming somewhat monotonous over time. It's a roughly 5.5 hour runtime that at moments feels like it's overstaying its welcome. But first, let's start with the good. One of the standout aspects of my experience was the variety of heroes and towers, particularly those aligned with the Dark Army. Early on, I discovered a synergy between putting certain Dark Army heroes and towers that significantly boosted my damage output. This discovery shaped much of how I approached the rest of the game, as I focused on unlocking and upgrading these specific units. The dual hero mechanic allowed for some creative combinations, and I found myself gravitating towards heroes who would complement each other's abilities. For instance, pairing a hero with strong crowd control abilities and another focused on single target damage created a dynamic duo that handled most situations. The heroes in the game are distinct, each with their own unique active and passive skills that make them feel impactful during battle. Whether it was summoning reinforcements, launching powerful area of effect attacks, or buffing nearby towers, the heroes added a layer of strategy that kept the gameplay interesting. The enemy design was also somewhat impressive. As the game progressed, the foes become increasingly more demonic, aligning with the narrative of the common threat uniting former enemies of the Dark Army and Lanira. The transition from more standard fantasy creatures to more sinister, hellish beings was a nice touch, as it kept me invested in the story even if the narrative wasn't particularly deep. I was interested to see what new monster would appear and how I would have to deal with them. Strategically, the game had moments where everything clicked. Planning my approach of each level before the waves began was satisfying, especially when I had to adapt my strategy to deal with new enemy types or new areas opening up and creating different lanes for monsters to come through. Although the fixed tower placement was a bit limiting, it also forced me to think more critically about my strategy. On some levels, the tower placement became a puzzle in and of itself. Once I found a strategy that worked, I often repeated it across multiple levels, which, while effective, contributed to the game's repetitive nature. Despite these positives, the game left me wanting more. The difficulty curve, especially in the early stages, didn't provide much of a challenge. Once I figured out the necessity of air targeting towers to deal with flying enemies, the rest of the game became much easier. This realization led to a gameplay loop where I found myself spamming abilities and reinforcements, placing little thought into tower placement due to the fixed locations and repetitive strategy that emerged. The game's structure allows you to unlock and upgrade towers gradually. However, it didn't introduce enough variety to keep me engaged after the first few hours. I often found myself relying on the same tower combinations and strategies, which made the later stages feel like a grind rather than a challenge. Another issue that most are going to have is pulling up that $6.99 price tag. Yes, the game will take a bit to complete, but I don't think that by itself is a good thing. There's not much incentive for you to do anything beyond just beat the mate storyline, and once you do that, you'll probably feel the same way I did and ask yourself why you invested the time to go through it in the first place. It feels like there was some clear content missing to justify the price tag. In fact, when I first discussed this on the iOS subreddit, the first critique I gave was the game felt really short. Very early on, I felt like I was very near the end, and it persisted until I actually got there. As a newcomer to the series, I found the dual hero mechanic to be a refreshing addition that added depth to the gameplay. However, beyond this feature, the game didn't offer much in the way of innovation. The level design, while visually appealing, lacked variety, and the gameplay often felt repetitive. Fans of the series might enjoy this continuation of the familiar formula, but for those seeking a fresh tower defense experience, it may not be the best choice. Would I recommend this game? If you're a fan of the Kingdom Rush series or enjoy tower defense games in general, there's definitely fun to be had here. But at $6.99, the game feels a bit too steep for what it offers. The repetitive gameplay, combined with limited content, makes it hard to justify the price unless you're already invested. If you can get it on sale, it might be worth a try. But otherwise, you're better off looking for a more robust tower defense experience, such as Dungeon Warfare 2. If you have any recommendations for me to review, leave it in the comments section below. Otherwise, stay tuned in to Gaming in the Moment.